Good morning again. So we're on day 5 now. Too much activity going on here. This is the natural yeast sourdough starter I started a few days ago. It's a little bit of bubble going on there, but not much. And this is the one that I added the yeast to, the commercial yeast, and it's really not any different. So I'm going to continue to feed it. This is day 5. I'm going to give it another half a cup of flour and a third of a cup of water, and we'll check back with it tomorrow and see how these two are doing. So there we have the Kombucha Sourdough Starter. It's definitely taking a while, but it's a process. You'll have that with any natural yeast starter. It takes anywhere up to a week, 10 days for it to ripen. So we'll keep going. Good morning. This is day 6. Okay, we've got a little activity going on here. This is the starter that I did with the kombucha, an 1/8 of a teaspoon of commercial yeast. And this is the one that I did with just the kombucha. So I'm going to feed them again. It's day 6. This one does have a couple little bubbles here and there, so I'm not giving up on this one. This one will be fine. It just needs a little more time. And this one is actually getting quite active. So that's a good thing. So anyway, starting a starter with kombucha. It's coming along. This one is going to take longer, but it'll work. So this one, I mean, if you want to stay a purist and just do the kombucha, then this will work. Now here's a starter that I started with kombucha quite a while ago. I don't know if you can see this, it's kind of dark. But see all the nice bubbles? And inside, I don't think you can see that. But inside, there we go. See, it's quite bubbly. It's not pretty. So what I tried to do, the mistake I made with this was not taking starter out and throwing it away. I just kept feeding it and feeding it. And that apparently makes for a weaker starter. So what I tried is I took a cup of this, or it was a half a cup of this, and I put it in another jar and fed it. And look how nicely this has risen. Now this has been 2 days. So this is doubled in size now. So this is a much stronger starter. So I guess it is really important to, take some away. And then your starter keeps getting stronger and stronger. This one's nice and thick too. But you need to discard some of the starter. That's all there is to it. There's cake recipes out there, cookie recipes, if you don't want to throw it away, like me. I don't want to throw it away. So anyway, it does work. But I still need to, I had one really nice loaf of bread that I did with the kombucha. And the last couple loaves I haven't been too happy with. So that's why I'm starting to play around with the starter and see if I can't get a little stronger starter. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow. Good morning. Oh, we have lots of action this morning. I believe this is day 6. And our starter over here that we did with the 1/8 teaspoon of commercial yeast has actually overflowed, and our starter here, the natural starter, is also rising very nicely. So let's see. Yeah, we got nice bubbles on the side. Now I find what happens with this kombucha starter is it sort of forms a film on the top that gets kind of thick or really hard. So I don't know if that's from the kombucha, But anyway, I usually just take that off. So it's time to start discarding half of this. And I found out that's really important, because if you don't, the starter never gets strong enough. So anyway, oh, look at that. Wow, that's awesome. So I'm going to try and bake some bread with some of this at some point this week, today, tomorrow. But I'm going to start feeding this and then putting it in the fridge. I guess that's an important part if you can't feed it every day, because I've been experimenting with this, and I've got too much starter. I've got starter coming out the ears. These are the ones I just started, and these were starters I had started earlier. They're nice and active now too, with bubbles. This was the original one I made. So they're all starting up, but I just have way too much starter. So some of this is either going to have some things made with it, or, I'm going to just have to throw it out because it's way too much. So anyway, that's exciting news. I'll update again when I make some bread. Good morning. We're on day 8. I skipped a day. I fed this starter yesterday, and I've been removing half, which really seems to be doing the trick. This is the natural one, and there's lots of bubbly action going on there. And this one was the one that I added the 1/4 teaspoon, or the 1/8 of a teaspoon of commercial yeast to. So they're both bubbling up. This one was here yesterday, so it's pretty much doubled, and it's going to be ready. I'd give it another day or two. And this one, actually this is the one that bubbled over the other day, and now it's risen up quite a bit. So anyway, we're going to continue to feed, and it'll probably take a good 14 days before they're ready to bake with. But I don't know if you can see this or not. Turn on the light, but there's lots of bubbles going on here, lots and lots. So this one's getting ready. Doesn't smell bad. The smell is good. This one doesn't have as much bubbling action going on, but this one has little bubbles, little tiny bubbles. So yeah, my kombucha starter is doing pretty well. In my older one that I did a while back, this has really got a lot of action going. Lots of nice bubbles. The top has a lot of good bubbles going on. So I think I'm going to try and bake a loaf of bread with this, either today or tomorrow. So that's the latest update. Good morning again. This is day 9, and we have a lot of nice action going on here. This is the starter with the natural yeast, and it's been pretty much doubling overnight. And this is the starter with the 1/8 of a teaspoon of commercial yeast. So it's coming along. I want to give these 2 weeks. I could maybe start baking some bread with these. I'm not sure. It's a trial and error. And that, unfortunately, is not a skill that I've mastered yet. So anyway, I did bake a loaf of bread with my old I'm going to bake a loaf of bread with my old starter. And I have that proofing now. So that's how that's looking. Oops, sorry about that. So I have to put that in the oven yet. It's not quite there. Pretty close. So I got to start heating up my oven. And I will let you see how that turned out. But that was actually using a Kombucha starter that I started a couple months ago, and I didn't document that process. So this is that starter. And I fed it last night, and I've been taking half out. I've been feeding them half a cup of flour, really any kind of flour, but I've been putting a little rye flour in with it, with a third of a cup of water, and they seem to like that. Now this is very bubbly. So this is actually the starter that I'm trying to bake a loaf of bread with. But we'll see how that works out. I keep trying different bread baking formulas from bakers. The sourdough starter seems to be active, so I'll just have to experiment around. Eventually I'll get it. So that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Today is day 9. Good morning, everybody. And as you can see, I fed this starter yesterday, natural and 1/8 of a teaspoon yeast added, and I always mark where I started off when I started to feed it. So you can see this is doubled in size, and this one is also doubled in size. So it's getting very active. Lots of bubbles going on there. Actually, the natural one is doing a little better than the other one. Now this one actually at one point bubbled over the top. So they're both very active. I'm still going to feed them and give them a couple more days before I try to use them. It's day 9. I wanted to let it go at least, try till day 14 so that I can get a nice strong starter. Because the other starter it worked great for the banana bread I made. And I don't know if you can see that. I used the starter in that. I have it covered up. And it made some great banana bread, but somehow my sourdough is still not rising enough. It's coming out as a brick. And that was from using this starter, which I didn't feed yesterday because I ran out of flour. So I have to run out today and get some flour. It's like feeding your kids. But I mean, this one bubbles and it rises, but yeah, for some reason it's just not working as well. So I'm going to try the new starter and see how that goes in a couple days. All right, just wanted to give you a quick update. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, I'm on day 11. This says day 9. And I was very bad mom, sourdough mom. I ran out of flour and I didn't feed these guys yesterday, so I had to run to the store today and buy some flour. So anyway, it's still bubbly, it's still active, but if I don't feed these guys soon, I'm going to have a big fail here. So I'm going to go ahead and feed these. We're on day 11. I'm going to try and bake some bread with these on day 12. Hopefully it'll be ready and we'll see what happens. Okay, just wanted to give you an update, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning. We're on day 12 and our starter has become very active. Yesterday when I fed it, it was here, and now it's nice and doubled in size. This is the natural. Same thing with the one I added 1/8 of a teaspoon of commercial yeast to. It's also doubled in size. Got nice bubble action going on there. And let me turn the light on. Got little bubbles going on here too. There we go. Nice and bubbly. So our Kombucha starter is looking pretty active. You can see in here. Now, one thing I've noticed with the kombucha, this one's really active. One thing I've noticed is sometimes if you don't keep it covered tight, which I don't because I want to gather the good yeast from the air, sometimes it gets a little film on top, and I think that's just because it hardens off a little bit. But just take that off and throw that out. It's not hooch, which is liquid. This is almost like a skin. I just take that off before I feed it again. So there was no harm done from it going without food for a day. But if you're not going to feed it, then you need to refrigerate it. So I'm going to try to bake some bread with this tomorrow and see how it turns out. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow and see how it works. Bye for now. Good morning. Day 12 has arrived. As you can see, I fed this yesterday and it has more than doubled in size. It's looking beautiful. This one too, still rising. Both of them have both doubled in size and more than doubled. So I'm going to try and bake some bread today with this Kombucha Sourdough Starter. It took a while to get going, but it's nice and bubbly. I don't know if you can see that. They both are. This was the one, the natural yeast one, and this one I added 1/8 of a teaspoon of commercial yeast. So I'm going to try baking bread with both of these and see how they turn out. But anyway, it's day 12. And we'll see what happens. And I finally made an edible loaf of sourdough bread. Yay! This one I made from the starter with the 1/8 of a teaspoon of yeast. And it turned out pretty darn good. So that's that loaf. It's more a sandwich loaf. I have another one in the baker that's rising. It's a different recipe that I'll share with you too when I get it made. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with this one. So I used my starters and I fed them. And here's the natural one. And what is going on here? Holy mackerel. It certainly is an active starter now. It's all over the lid. It's having an explosion of whatever. It's partying in there. Nice big bubbles going on. So I'm hoping my other bread that I made with this is going to turn out really nice. And this is the one that I used. Look at those bubbles on the bottom. That's excellent. This is the one with the 1/8 of a teaspoon of commercial yeast. And it's way up here to the top too. By this evening it's probably going to bubble over. But yeah, look at those bubbles. That's just great. So, I finally got that going. And I'm hoping that my sourdough turns out well. So, that's the end of the project of making the starter. I've got 2 good batches going. And this one is actually the first one I made, and it's already doubled in size too. But this is the one that didn't, the bread I made with it just wasn't real good. It was a real heavy, dense bread. So, I don't know, I'm going to try it again with that one. This is also a natural one. But they're all made with kombucha and flour. So, I would call this a success. And I will be back after I bake some bread with it. Well, good morning. Finally got a good loaf of sourdough bread. This bread is delicious. It has a really, really good crust. Crumb is good. It's chewy. It's delicious. So, my Kombucha Sourdough Starter This is from the natural one. It's finally taken off, and I baked a good loaf of bread with it. So what did I learn? I learned that you have to do at least a half discard of the starter. You can't just keep feeding it. The starter won't be strong enough. And it actually took about 12 days for the starter to be active enough to bake a good loaf. So I'm very happy with this. See you next time. Love you guys, and thanks for watching.